So, as you know, when Michelle and I get together, we like to give out trade secrets. So we were giving out the trade secrets of financial coaching the other week. Today we're spilling the beans on financial advice fees. And this is something I get mega worked up and excited about. And it might seem like a really strange thing to get excited about, but it's like for the normal person trying to figure out what the flip a financial advisor charges, it's mission impossible. And I hate this because I think it makes us opaque, unapproachable. And if we could explain what it is we do and what we charge transparently, it means more people would come and chat to us and we'd have the chance to help more people. So that's why Michelle and I today are going to explain financial advice fees for you. So Michelle, do you have any strong thoughts or opinions on this subject?
I do, because I think it's, well, quite key, isn't it? If you're going to go to someone, you're going to pay for a service. And I think us as financial advisors, we want to be transparent. We want to be open with our clients. And I know for me, and I know for you, that's really important. But as you say, the image that's out there is that we are opaque and we do seem a bit sort of behind closed doors, and that's really not the case. So yeah, for me, this is really key to help people understand what those fees are and how they work, because it can be quite scary when you're shopping around trying to work out who to go to.
If you go onto lots of financial advisor websites and you try and find out what the fees are, you're going to come away really disappointed. But it's not because we're being shady and we're up to no good. It's because as a profession, historically, it's been really hard for us to explain. So Michelle, you're going to grill me on all the awkward questions today, aren't you, on financial advice fees?
I am.
Because I am a self-proclaimed expert in this area, just because I've done a lot of work in the area and I work with lots of financial advisors helping them with their fees. So I think before we get into the meat of it, Michelle, shall we explain to people the legacy, why we are in this situation as a profession?
Yeah, I think that's really key to understanding why we're in the position we're in now.
Right. So one of the biggest gripes, so I hang out on lots of financial and personal finance pages and forums, what have you. And I know that one of the most common gripes people have about financial advisors is this percentage charging thing. Why the hell are they charging in percentages? So if we go back to CN before 2013, the way financial advisors used to get paid was from the product. And so it was the product providers that paid them. So you would sit with a financial advisor back in 2012 and they would give you some advice on a pension and you would get a pension. What you didn't realize is the pension would then pay the advisor commission, which was always a percentage of the product. So the charges, the advice cost was built into the product. Then we had some cracking legislation called the Retail Distribution Review, which banned this, which was bloody great news because it brought some transparency. So the products no longer had the cost of the advice built into it. Your advisor had to sit down and have a conversation about how much they were going to charge you, the knowledge that was in their head to help you. But because everything had been done in percentages before, as a profession, we found it really difficult to move away from that. And so the standard kind of charge that you saw was 3% plus half a percent, 3 plus a half, it was known as. So to get the advice and whatever products involved, it would cost you 3% of whatever money was moving around. And then this 0.5%, where that came in, is once the money was in the thing, whatever the product was, the advisor would get 0.5% each year of the money in there. And that was for looking after the thing and reporting back to you. So that's the legacy of the percentage thing, why we have it and why some of us are still struggling to shake it off. Is that a reasonable summary?
I think it explains the roots of where we go back to. And just so sort of update slightly, I suppose, is the Financial Conduct Authority, according to their more up-to-date figures, so the 3% and 0.5%, the average is now 2.4% and 0.8%.
Still a bloody percentage though, isn't it?
It definitely is. And I think that's the thing, because percentages are opaque in the fact that those monetary equivalents don't instantly spring to mind. So if I'm sat with a client and I was to quote percentages, they're either scrambling in their head to try and work out what that is in money, or they're looking at me and waiting for me to give them that equivalent. And I think that's where it can become a bit scary, because they don't want to turn around to you and say, so how much will that be?
And do you know what kind of kick-started my passion about getting transparent with financial advice fees? I can remember, this must be maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I attended the Next Gen conference, and they had the most amazing speaker there. She was this amazing woman. She worked for Sainsbury's, and I can't remember exactly what she was talking about. I think it was procurement and supply chains, doesn't matter. But at the end, she was taking questions from the audience. So this is a room full of financial advisors. And one of the questions we asked the woman from Sainsbury's was, do you have a financial advisor? But bear in mind, she's very senior in Sainsbury's and will be on a reasonable salary. And she said, no. I'm like, okay, can you tell us why? She goes, well, I always felt a bit awkward because I didn't know if I had enough money to approach one of you guys. And I didn't want to be in that position of being told, no, you don't have enough money, go away. And I thought, oh, that's so very wrong. We need to change this. So that's what put a rocket under me on this subject.
No, I can totally understand that, because that's probably one of my biggest bugbears about the industry, is people believing they do not have enough to warrant having financial advice. And I think that's everyone should have access to financial advice, regardless of your circumstances, because the outcome is always positive. You know, that's why you work with a financial advisor, is to make that positive. And I think to be thinking that you were excluded from that, and there are many advisors like myself and Julie that want everybody to have access to financial advice, and we'll do what we can to provide that to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think these are some of the questions or worries that go through people's heads, is that they can't afford it, or that they'll be charged too much, they'll be ripped off. And the question is it actually worth it? Which I think is a fair question.
A really fair question, because, you know, they don't see what benefit they'll get, because sometimes they have a problem, but they don't actually know how that could be solved or what benefit that brings to them. So I think any fee that we look to implement has to be equivalent to the benefit they're going to receive. And I know most good advisors will see that the outcome to the client is the most important factor to us, because that's what most of us are like. You know, we want the best outcome for the client, so we will look to charge accordingly.
Yeah, and that's exactly the approach that I take in advice. I always start off with the expectation of myself that by the end of the first year working with me, whatever I happen to have charged you, the benefits you will have received will far outstrip whatever you paid me. Should we get into the nitty-gritty of how financial advisors charge then?
Yeah, come on, then let's do it.
Shall I just dive in, or have you got specific questions for me?
Well, I think the first one is, you know, if I come to you, are you only going to charge me on a percentage basis?
Okay, great question. So we'll take the generic financial advice community as a whole rather than me specifically. So are we only going to charge percentages? So this whole percentage thing, let's say you've got a number of pensions and you're like, I want a financial advisor to look at them for me and tell me if they're okay. And so the standard, the average, as Michelle just shared with us, is that the advisor will look at all the pensions and will charge you 2.4% to make sure that they're okay. Now, not everybody works that way. You don't have to pay a percentage. So lots of advisors like myself and Michelle, we will work on a flat fee. So it doesn't have to be a percentage. I think what you'll find is the more experienced advisors are more comfortable charging flat fees, because you need to know the work that's involved and how much time that's going to take you to be able to say, right, that's going to cost you X pounds. So if you approach an advisor, you found one that you like, but then they start talking to you about these percentage things, you can turn around and say, well, look, I appreciate that's how you normally do things, but I would prefer to pay a flat fee. Is that something that you can do? And a lot of them are going to probably say yes.
Yeah, see, our terms of business do. So that's where the confusion can come in. So a client will come in and, you know, they've had a look at it and they're say, well, you're going to charge me a percentage. And I'll say, well, I can, or I can charge you a flat fee based on the work I feel that is appropriate at the time. And that gives you certainty. And I think certainty is key to a client when entering an advice process, because I wouldn't want to be surprised with a bill, a curveball that appears and suddenly it's costing me this much money. I think it's always so important a client is aware. So flat fees work well for me and work well for the client.
Okay, so the trick is finding one of us that'll do flat fees. Now, I've just opened up a webpage while we're talking, okay? Because one of the places you can go to find financial advice is a website called Vouched For. Okay, so you go on the Vouched For website, and it's going to ask you to type in a geographic area where you want your advisor to be. And then it's going to bring up a new page. And if you click on the filters button, then it'll drop down, you can see some filters. So the first thing you want to do is uncheck the box that says only show advisors who are verified and available for contact. Now that might sound really weird. I'm telling you to untick the verified box. The only thing verified means is that they pay vouched for. It has been verified that they pay vouched for money to be on there. So if you untick that, that gives you access to a lot more advisors. Then there's another box that says only show fixed fee advisors. If you tick that box, it'll then bring up the advisors in your area that charge fixed fees. Because we've unticked the verified box, which means that they pay vouch for, you maybe also want to then go and double check on the FCA register that the individuals there are registered with the FCA, because that is who allows us to do our job. We have to be registered with them. So that's a quick tip on how to find an advisor that doesn't charge percentages.
That's brilliant. Because I think it just gives everybody an idea of where to go and what to do. So I've got a question for you, Julie.
Okay.
So say I need financial advice. There's something going on in my life right now. I need some advice. I'm not quite sure what. So potentially this could come into, I'm going through a divorce, I'm going through a tricky time and I need some advice, but I don't really know what it is that I need. If I come and see you, are you going to charge me a flat fee or, a big fee, not knowing what I need, or can you do it hourly?
You can do it hourly. So I think the first thing to cover off is most advisors, the initial conversation is going to be free of charge. And our advice is always go and speak to a few of us.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not going to have someone in to redo your kitchen without speaking to at least 3 people, are you? Why would you let somebody loose on your money without doing some due diligence? So advisors will charge hourly rates. Now, in reality, in my experience, this only really works in certain scenarios. So like the one you just described, where it's divorce, working on an hourly rate works then. And when I say it works, most advisors are looking to charge you in a way that is the fairest value to you. So if we take that example there, it's probably doing a number of tasks to help you prepare for the divorce. And we will keep a timesheet on that work, and we can submit the timesheet. And it's very similar to how your solicitor will work as well. And if we're working in tandem with them, then they kind of understand that approach. Does that help?
Yeah, and I think that's quite nice for people to know, because we're often seen as very different to solicitors in that way, but we can actually adapt our charging to your circumstances. And I think that's what I was sort of trying to get across, is that we can adapt to suit you. So please don't ever feel afraid to come and ask.
So in that scenario, early charging makes sense. But I personally, my opinion is that early charging doesn't work in a normal financial planning relationship, because we spend a lot more time with our clients than a solicitor will with their clients, because we're building a relationship with you. We want to get to know you, what's important to you. And we don't want you picking up the phone to us or having a conversation with us, being aware that the meter is running in the background. So we want to free you to be able to have those conversations with us and knowing that it's already priced in. We're not going to start charging you extra money.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think it would put people off. And that's the last thing we want to do. It is about building a trust, and it's about partnership when you work together with a client. So you're free to pick up the phone. And I know I've had meetings which can go on for a little while, but it's nice because you're having a catch up, you're having a chat, and you're getting to know that person and they're getting to know you. So that's really important. So yeah, our hourly fees, I tend to only do it for those scenarios where it is primarily divorce work.
I think you've raised an interesting point there. If you only take one thing away from this, apart from we don't just charge percentages, right? There are 3 potential points at which a financial advisor is going to charge you. And they will always agree this up front with you and discuss it with you before you incur any costs. Okay, so the 3 points is there's the advice. So you come to see one of us with the thing that you need help with, and we will produce a report for you with the advice on how to deal with the thing that you've come to see us with. So there's potentially a charge for that. Then let's say in the report, advice report, there's some actions that need to happen. And you might hear us refer to that as implementation. So we might make a charge for that. Then once the thing has been implemented, it might need looking after. And that might require an ongoing service, and there could be a charge for that. So we've broken it down into 3 separate areas there. But some advisors will bundle it up or not charge certain bits or do it slightly different. But they're the 3 bits that you want to look out for when you're talking to one of us. Anything you would add to that, Michelle?
No, I think you covered that really well. And I think it may be bundled up, the first 2, the advice and implementation. So you may see the what's called initial advice fee and then your ongoing. But when I go to see someone, Julie, will all of those always be split out and put in writing for me?
No. So I tell you what, we'll use me as an example, because I've gone through the full evolution and iteration of all the charges. So when I started, I was a 3+1/2 person. So if you came to see me with something, I would charge you 3% to move any of the stuff around that needed moving. And then to look after it, it would be 0.5% ongoing. And then I heard from the Sainsbury's woman decided that was an absolutely rubbish way of doing it, and I'm never doing it like that again. So I want to be really transparent. I thought, right, well, the commodity, the thing I've got to sell is not actually the products, the information in my head. So I would charge for an advice report. And I did it like that. If you wanted me to go and do the stuff in the report, there was a separate charge for it. But I did it like that because some people, as long as if you tell them what needs doing, they're actually quite capable of going away and doing it themselves. So I'd give them the report and say, like, it's your choice now. You can either ignore my advice, you can go and implement the advice yourself, or you can pay me and I'll go and do it for you. So that was my second iteration. And now I thought, no, that's too complicated. I want to make it even simpler. And that is, I just charge for the advice. If you want me to implement it, there's no extra charge for that. If you want to implement it yourself, you're free to go and do that. So you'll sometimes see the advice and the implementation, but either bundled in together or one of them is completely missing. So let me try and recap there. Michelle, I know that you have your advice and doing the advice in one charge.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I just charge for the advice and I will make the stuff happen for no extra charge. Some advisors just charge for the implementation. So you'll get the advice report, and if you don't follow the advice and they don't get to go and do the thing for you, they don't get paid. Not a big fan of that business model for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But it still exists out there.
Okay, so another question for you. I've come to see you and you've explained to me, obviously, the advice charge, the implementation charge, how that works. So the ongoing, do I have to have the ongoing?
No, you don't. So
question I'm asked a lot.
No, you don't have to have it. You can say no.
Yeah.
And the way I work with my clients is we'll have that first meeting where we're trying to figure out, what do you want? And am I the person to give it to you? And if we agree that I am, then I'll say, right, some clients benefit from working with me on an ongoing basis. Some don't. And I think as we go through the process of this initial advice phase and setting up your financial plan, that happens over a series of meetings and we'll get to know each other. And then I will start to have an idea of whether it is of value to you to carry on working with me. And you will start to get an idea of whether you would value working with me on an ongoing basis. So once we've got it all set up, then it's a conversation of, well, do you want to carry on the relationship? And if it's a yes, then we'll discuss an ongoing fee. If it's a no, then that's fab. Off you go. If you've got any questions, you can always come back to me.
Yeah, and I think, I've seen this in practice. So I actually have some clients who I did some initial work for them, set up some pensions, and growing. The pensions are growing, and I actually said, I don't feel you need the ongoing service, to maximize the benefit you're going to get. And they looked at me and went, well, that's really nice of you to say, but we want it. And I sort of, okay. And they said, we like talking to you. We like knowing you're overseeing everything. And if we need to speak to you, we can. So can we have it? And yes, of course they can have it. But I think that was probably one of the few times where I've said, I really don't think you need it. And the clients have insisted on having it, which is a lovely compliment for me, in terms of they want access to me and everything else. But I was a bit sort of taken aback.
Yeah. So it's just having the conversation, isn't it? I got all excited. This is going to sound strange. I got excited because I lost a client a couple of months ago. And it's a success because when she started working with me about 5 years ago, one of her goals was that she wanted to be able to do it all herself. So we spent 5 years working together, increasing her knowledge and expertise and confidence and being able to do all this stuff herself. And we reached the point this summer where we're like, okay, you've got this now. You don't need me now. You know how to do it. She's like, really? Oh, how you do? She goes, I do, don't I? All right, so I'm going to turn off the ongoing advisor charge and off you go on your own. And, I think in 10 years, maybe 5 years, her circumstances will start to become a little bit more complicated. And at that point, she can come back to me and I'll help with the complicated bit. But right now, she doesn't need me, so don't pay for me.
Yeah. And I think that's also part of, the ongoing is it is the guidance and the education that we love to be able to teach our clients how to do things without us, which can be, as you say, sounds quite counterintuitive, doesn't it? But we love imparting that information and seeing people be able to do things for themselves.
And I think that's it. Most advisors, we don't want to get paid unless we're delivering value.
Yeah.
I think it is a legitimate goal to go to your financial advisor with that. Yes, I need your ongoing service at the start, but I would like to have as a goal to not need you and for them to work with you to achieve that goal.
Yeah, and I think that's an amazing outcome. Totally amazing outcome. So I've got another question for you.
Go for it.
So we've talked about sort of all the various fees and the way things are done. So will all financial planners work like that?
No, probably not.
Tell me more.
You're trying to get me into trouble, aren't you?
Not really trouble, just
honest.
Being a little bit naughty.
Okay. All right, let's cover off one thing before Michelle lands me in trouble. The ongoing. So again, is that a percentage? It can be. A lot of advisors will charge you a percentage for the ongoing service, but you can also request a flat fee. So a lot of my clients just pay me a standing order each month. And I like that because it separates out the cost of me from the investment. So you can see what you pay me and you can judge whether I'm worth that money or not. So that doesn't have to be a percentage either. So you were asking me, does everybody do it the way that we do it, Michelle?
Yeah.
Sadly, no.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to be really honest with you here. Some advisors, she rescued, some advisors, I call them asset gatherers. And they just want to gather it in and be responsible for as much money as possible. So move all your pensions over here, move all your ISAs over here, and then we're going to slap a 1% annual management charge on it, or an ongoing charge on it. And they just want to have as much money under management as possible because they're getting a percentage of the ongoing on that. And it's not really, they're thinking about what's best for the business rather than what's best for the client. And unfortunately, I think this is still a practice that goes on. Yeah. I guess the one bit of advice I would give to everybody that's listening is if you've got an advisor already, is just understand, what do I pay them And what do I get back for that? And does that feel like value for money to me? Equally, if you're shopping for a financial advisor, like, what are you going to do for me? What do I get out of it? And what's it going to cost me? And if you can get clear on those two things, then you can decide, I think that's worth it, or I think it's not worth it. And if you think it's not worth it, don't do it. Go and speak to another one.
I'll always encourage anyone that comes to see me, I will say, have you spoken to other advisors? And I always actively encourage that, because I would rather they do that and come back to me because they want to work with me and believe the benefit I give them is right for them. Because the last thing you want to do is feel like you're pushing someone down a route they don't want to be. They may work better with another advisor. So I would rather they find the person that fits.
I think that's right, because although we all have the same qualifications, we all do the job really differently.
Yeah.
Like, I describe myself as the world's slowest financial advisor. If you've got something that you want dealing with quickly, don't come to me. If you want someone that's going to go really slow and take the time to get to know you and what's important to you, then I'm your woman. So it is about finding the person that's right for you.
Yeah, one of the things I always say to my clients is I am never going to be a salesperson. I am never going to win awards for selling my services, because I will explain what I do, and then it's up to them to go away and have that think about that and give them that time and that space to do that. I will never push anybody. And I feel if you go to somewhere and you're pushed, maybe just take a step back and ask for a bit of time to consider whether that's what is right for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. So we've given sort of some of the theory behind it. I think maybe some numbers would be helpful for people as well. So you gave us the average charges of the 2.4 for the initial advice and 0.8. Now, I think one of the really good developments in our profession over the last 10 years is the introduction of this idea of financial planning rather than just selling products. So I know advisors where you go and see them and you can get a financial plan for £750. Okay, there will be a slightly higher implementation charge alongside that, I suspect. You can come and see someone like me who will do the whole thing for maybe £2,500. So just to give you an idea of the ranges out there. So I am by no means the cheapest financial advisor, but I'm not the most expensive either. So you've got at one end of the scale, sort of £750 for the initial advice piece. Some advisors will go up to 5,000, and a lot of that is going to be dependent on the complexity of what's involved in the work. So at the £5,000 end, we are doing massive tax planning. As soon as an advisor starts helping you with tax planning, they're probably saving you tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds. So let's put that in context. You're maybe going to pay them, £3,000, £4,000, £5,000. They will be saving you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds with their advice. So I think context is really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I've had clients that I've probably gone across that scale on, depending on the complexity of what they do. And I think, as you know, Julie, I tend to attract fairly complex clients. So mine do tend to be sort of on the sort of upper side of that. But again, it is making sure it's commensurate with the work that's been done and the outcome for the client. So I've had a client, we were talking beforehand, that I charged £250 for some advice, because for me, the outcome that was to them justified that fee. I couldn't justify more just because I could. So it has to be sort of in line with the outcome. And as you say, someone who's fairly complex, tax planning, retirement planning, all those sort of things, that requires a lot of in-depth work from ourselves. So we do then charge accordingly.
Yeah, then just give you some real numbers and context again. So I'm thinking of one of the clients I've had for the longest time, and the first time I met them, they had some money. I think it was some of £40,000. They were trying to figure out the most impactful way to use the money. I say impactful, it's tax efficient, because they were an economist. They wanted efficient deployment of their capital.
Yes.
I can't remember. I probably charged them in the region of maybe £1,200. So we've taken the £40,000 and we put it into a pension. Now, Michelle, you're the pension whiz. you want to tell people how much tax I've just saved that person by putting £40,000 in the pension? Higher rate taxpayer.
Yeah. So, tax relief at their highest rate. So 40%.
Yeah. So what's that? Is that £8,000 on 40,000?
I just need to
Yeah.
check. Yeah. It's awful, isn't it?
So I have charged them £1,200. I have saved them £8,000 tax. And that's kind of the mental trade-off we're always doing in our heads when we're trying to figure out what to charge someone, is like, we'll look at how much money can we save them or make them, and make sure that whether we're charging them is smaller than that amount.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes the benefits and the savings aren't immediately obvious, but we will be working behind the scenes to make those savings, and they will be explained. But immediately up front, when that fee is probably said, it won't be obvious what we're about to save you or what we can save you by what we recommend.
No, and I think it was then the January, February rolled round and they got a check from the revenue for £4,000. I get a phone call. I've just had a check for £4,000 from the revenue. Like, yes. Is that mine? Yes. Why? Because that's your tax saving for your pension. I get to keep the £4,000. Yes.
And just
Okay.
to say, so actually 40% of the 40,000 is 16,000.
Oh, bloody hell. It was an £8,000 check you got then, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, so that's amazing, isn't it, for a client to have that, and is that mine? Like you say, and be able to say, yes, it is. It justifies itself. And I think that's the bit that you don't see straight away. So just be mindful of that when an advisor gives you recommendations.
Yes, this will be when I started. So £40,000, 3% of £40,000, £1,200. So this was in my 3% days. So I charged him £1,200, and he's getting magical checks from the revenue for £8,000 later. And another £8,000 went into his pension in tax relief. So are we worth that? A good one of us. Yes, we are definitely worth whatever we charge you. So there were the questions we had. Is it worth it? Can I afford it? Have we covered the can I afford it?
I don't think we did, no.
No, and that's where it's going to require some shopping around on your part. So being able to search for fixed fee advisors is going to help. And then you've got someone like Michelle, where you're going to charge what is fair to the client based on the value that you can deliver.
Yeah.
So yes, you can afford it, but it might take some digging to find the right advisor. And the thing is, if you approach me and you like me, that it turns out the benefit I'm going to give to you is not enough for what I would charge you, I'm going to recommend you to someone that I trust and I know that can look after you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go back and start again. I think most advisors will work that way. If they're not the right one for you, we know that many of each other, then we will help you find the right one.
Yeah, because I think we've all got a vested interest, and particularly like ourselves, that we want to ensure that person gets that advice. So we will go out of our way to make sure and give recommendations for other people to make sure you get it.
Have you got any other tricky questions for me?
Just trying to think, are there any other anomalies out there I might come across? So when I'm searching and Googling and looking for my financial advisor, is there anything else that I might come across that, is a bit of an anomaly?
An anomaly. Okay.
An anomaly. I like that word.
I have an anomaly. This is not how we normally refer to them. So there is a really big company in the UK called St. James's Place. St. James's Place, please don't sue me, okay? Because I'm doing this with the best of intentions. St. James's Place are a very large organisation, and unfortunately, they do have a reputation for being even less transparent with what they charge than financial advisors. Okay, so I am going to attempt to concisely explain how St. James's Place charge for what they do, because they do it a bit differently to the rest of us. There's no judgment on my part, okay? It's just different to how we do it. So if you're talking about a general investment account or an ISA, it's going to work pretty much the same as an independent financial advisor does it. Okay. For the records, St James's Place aren't independent financial advisors, they're restricted. So they work within their own ecosystem of products. Where they do it differently to the likes of me and Michelle is if you are putting money into a pension or an investment bond. So bear with me. It's all in the initial advice bit where it gets a bit more complex. So let's use a pension as an example.
Okay.
So I have got £100,000 and I want to put it into a pension. Let's say you go to see one of the advisors that charges, one of the IFAs that charge the average, okay? They're going to charge you 2.8% of your £100,000 to advise you on what pension to have. St James's Place, to get into the pension, there is a charge. So it costs 1.5% to actually get into the pension, and that's up front. And then also the cost of the advice can be up to 4.5%. So potentially we've got an initial charge of 6% to get your £100,000 into the pension.
Okay.
You with me so far, Michelle?
I'm following.
Okay. Then there is the running cost of the pension. So this is your fund charge, your ongoing advice charge, and all of that other stuff. That is in the region of 2.3% if you're in a balanced portfolio. So the average, according to the FCA, right, the average financial advisor is 1.9% running costs.
Yeah.
For St James's Place, it's in the region of 2.3%. So not a million miles away. So this is the ongoing cost, and it will always be that.
Yeah.
So
with you so far.
£100,000, pick it up, put it in the pension. Have I just turned the £100,000 into £94,000? No. Because remember, we had that 6%. So the £100,000 goes into the pension, and it's still £100,000. You're like, but hang on a minute, they wanted 6%.
Yeah.
What they're going to do is, because they know nobody likes seeing £100,000 turned into £94,000, they're going to take their 6% over 6 years.
Okay.
They're spreading it out. So whereas your normal annual management charge is 2.3%, what they technically do is discount that for the first 6 years. So it's 1.3. And then your 6% initial charge is spread out over those 6 years, so bringing it up to 2.3% each year.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm with you.
So £100,000 gone in, they're charging you 2.3% each year for the running of the thing. At the end of 6 years, it's still 2.3%, because what they did is they discounted the running costs of the thing to build in the initial charge.
Okay.
If you leave them in the first 6 years, because they didn't get all of their initial charge, there will be a penalty that you have to pay.
Okay.
But after 6 years, no, you're free to go. So I don't work for St James's Place. One of the St James's Place advisors very, very kindly and generously gave up their time to teach me how to explain this. So if I've done anything wrong, the mistakes are all mine, and they have come from a good place of just trying to explain it to people, because there is some confusion over it. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, it's just different.
Takes a bit of getting your head round, but once you sort of work it through, you can sort of understand. So the first 6 years are discounted from your standard product charge. Okay. So now I've got it. But like I say, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is asking advisors to explain to you how those charges work. And don't ever be afraid to ask whichever advisor you're sat in front of how those fees work.
And I guess if the advisor can't explain to you clearly in a way that makes sense to you what they cost, then don't work with them. Don't pay for something that you don't understand and that they can't confidently and competently say to you, right, I'm going to do X for you, and for that I will charge you Y. And if it isn't clear, don't do it.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Right. Ask as many questions as you like.
Yeah. So is there anything else, Michelle, or have we covered everything?
Well, the only thing that sort of sat in my head is obviously with fees, and there may be some people out there who feel that they don't want to pay a financial advisor, but they just need a little bit of guidance. Now, I know you and I I've had conversations with clients, and we will happily answer a question they may have and let them go, no charge for that. But are there other places out there they can go to get financial guidance if they don't want to come to a financial advisor?
Okay, so are we talking like pension wise here?
Yeah.
All right, this is more your specialty, Michelle. Tell them about pension wise.
So pension wise was set up primarily to help people understand their pension options. So after pensions freedom, where you can take your benefits in a manner of different ways from your pension, it was never quite as straightforward before 2016. This was set up to help people understand, and I think it's become really key nowadays to help people understand the pros and cons of ways of taking your pension, because there are so many ways, and particularly with taxation. So this service is free. You can speak to somebody who will give you guidance. They won't advise you, but they will give you guidance as to the different options. And then you can make an informed decision thereafter. So I think, if you're not looking to take financial advice, this is a very valuable service to enable you to understand what you're doing and the actions that you're going to take. And I think the other one that springs to mind was Money Helper.
Yeah.
So that was previously the money advice service, and I think it's government, isn't it? It's government run, but it gives you advice on all different types of financial areas, and you can go in. I think you can find retirement advice, you can find annuities, but it's not advice as such. It's guidance. It gives you the facts. It gives you sort of ideas of how things work. So they're very, very useful resources. So Money Helper and Pension Wise, and also Citizens Advice. I've still got some people who've working with. I've got a client who recently lost his father, and the mum's circumstances have been difficult, and whether state benefits may need to be claimed or any assistance that can be given to her. And I actually said, go to Citizens Advice and speak to someone with your mum, who can help with the benefit system and navigating their way around. So I think those three are very key. I don't know if you know of any others, Julie.
Nope, I think they're the big ones. So we'll put a link in the show notes to all these websites. So that was Pension Wise and Money Helper.
Yeah,
great,
and Citizens Advice. Yeah.
And Citizens Advice. So we'll put a link to all of them in the show notes. So let's say Michelle and I were like, ask questions, just keep asking questions till you get the answer that you want. And if you've got specific questions about this, or you want to run something past us, then get in touch with myself and Michelle, and we're happy to point you in the right direction, give you our opinion, answer, and just basically help anybody we can.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just, even if it builds your confidence a bit for when you go and see an advisor.
Yeah. All right. Well, we hope this has been helpful. We hope we don't get too much hate mail from other financial advisors, and St. James's Place don't sue us. If you found this episode helpful, what would be really good is if you could leave us a review. That really helps us reach more people. So if this has been helpful, go on, take a couple of minutes, just jump in the app, give us a little 5-star and tell us what you liked about it. Until next time, take care, and we'll speak to you soon.